Would Bruce Lee at his peak be able to contend with today's top MMA fighters?
What would happen if a martial arts legend faced the most complete fighters on the planet? Bruce Lee's punches were faster than the eye could track. His philosophy redefined combat, and his training inspired generations.
And when you do punch, now I'm leaning forward a little bit. I mean, you gotta put the whole hip into it and snap it.
For decades, one question has ignited passionate debates across martial arts circles, sports forums, and fight analysis communities. Would Bruce Lee, at his physical and intellectual peak, be capable of competing with today's elite MMA fighters? It's a question that goes beyond simple fantasy matchmaking. It challenges the relationship between mythology and measurable athletic evolution, between a martial arts pioneer and a generation of athletes shaped by systems he helped inspire. When discussing combat sports legends, few names evoke as much fascination, reverence, and controversy as Bruce Lee. His speed appeared almost supernatural. His philosophy reshaped global perceptions of combat. His training principles laid the conceptual groundwork for what would eventually become modern mixed martial arts. Yet despite his influence, the question persists. In a real fight governed by the structure, pressure, and technical sophistication of contemporary MMA, could Bruce Lee truly contend with the best fighters on the planet? Bruce Lee's physical abilities are the stuff of legend. Eyewitnesses described his punches as so fast that cameras struggled to capture them. His one-inch punch became a symbol of biomechanical efficiency. His body, sculpted through experimental and highly disciplined training techniques, embodied a fusion of speed, power, and explosiveness rarely seen in his era. Many admirers believe that no modern fighter, regardless of training or experience, could replicate his combination of speed, timing, and precision. They claim he was a martial arts prodigy who transcended ordinary athletic limitations. On the other side, critics argue that modern MMA represents the most refined and demanding full-contact combat sport ever created. Its athletes train under scientific systems that combine wrestling, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, strength conditioning, and psychological preparation. They spar daily against highly skilled opponents, sharpen instincts through thousands of rounds of live resistance, and refine their techniques through constant competition. Compared to such an environment, critics assert that Lee, despite his genius, never faced opponents of similar caliber nor endured the relentless pressure that defines elite MMA performance. To them, the answer is clear. Modern fighters have simply evolved beyond the era Lee inhabited. And yet, reality is never that simple. Bruce Lee was far more than performer, philosopher, or actor. He was a meticulous researcher of human mechanics, a relentless experimenter, and a visionary who saw the limitations of traditional martial arts long before the world witnessed the rise of UFC, Pride, or One Championship. His core principle: absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is uniquely your own, encapsulates the adaptive mindset that every successful MMA fighter must possess. Many techniques and ideas commonly used today in MMA were explored, documented, or predicted by Lee decades before MMA existed as a formalized sport. To evaluate whether Bruce Lee could compete with modern fighters, one must move beyond nostalgic admiration and beyond the assumptions of sports evolution. The real question is not merely whether he could win a fight today as he was then. It is whether his physical attributes, mindset, adaptability, training philosophy, and relentless pursuit of efficiency would allow him to thrive in a system built on the very principles he pioneered. Could the man who inspired the creation of contemporary hybrid martial arts survive and potentially excel in the ecosystem that evolved from his own ideas? This debate forces us to examine combat from multiple angles: physical conditioning, technical proficiency, philosophical adaptability, psychological pressure, and the structured demands of regulated competition. Bruce Lee was not a conventional fighter. He didn't compete in tournaments or step into cages. But he also didn't train merely for performance. His sparring sessions, his private challenges, and his obsessive self-critique formed a laboratory of combat experimentation. He fought not to entertain audiences, but to refine a functional system of self-defense that stripped away what he saw as illusion, ritual, and inefficiency. Modern MMA fighters, in contrast, train for survival inside a cage governed by rules, strategies, and conditioning cycles designed for prolonged combat. Their world emphasizes positional control, endurance, ground fighting, and continuous adaptation under real-time resistance. It is a world shaped by countless athletes testing, failing, learning, and evolving through decades of competition. Bruce Lee never experienced that world, but he laid the foundation that made it possible. As we explore this question in depth, we will examine multiple dimensions of Bruce Lee's method, his physical and mental preparation, the evolution of modern MMA, and the philosophical principles that connect or divide the two. Each section will bridge historical insight with contemporary combat analysis, moving beyond myth to evaluate Bruce Lee as both an individual and a theoretical modern competitor. Ultimately, the question is not only whether Bruce Lee could defeat a modern fighter, it is whether his unique adaptability, intelligence, and visionary mindset will allow him to evolve into one of them. And in pursuing that answer, we uncover a deeper understanding of what it truly means to fight, to adapt, and to master the ever-changing science of combat. To understand whether Bruce Lee could realistically contend with modern MMA fighters, we must first examine the roots of his martial philosophy and technical development. Bruce Lee was not simply a practitioner of traditional styles, nor was he merely a performer experimenting with flashy techniques for cinema. He approached martial arts as a scientific discipline, grounded in analysis, experimentation, and functional application. His method, later known as Jeet, represented a radical break from tradition at a time when most martial artists adhered strictly to inherited forms and rigid lineages. Lee questioned everything: technique, training, conditioning, and even the cultural beliefs surrounding combat. This constant questioning laid the foundation for a system that, in many ways, predated the core logic of modern mixed martial arts. Bruce Lee's journey began with Wing Chun, a system taught to him by the legendary IP man. Wing Chun emphasized close-range combat, economy of motion, direct lines of attack, and center-line control. Lee's early exposure to these principles shaped his intuitive understanding of timing and precision. The rapid-fire chain punches, the tactile sensitivity developed through chi saw drills, and the emphasis on efficiency became foundational tools he would later refine. Wing Chun taught him to value speed not merely as a physical attribute, but as a strategic advantage. It trained him to react instantly and to neutralize threats with minimal wasted motion. Yet, even as a young student, Lee recognized the limitations of confining himself to a single system. During his teenage years in Hong Kong, he studied Western boxing and became fascinated by its emphasis on footwork, rhythm, head movement, and powerful linear punches. He admired fighters like Muhammad Ali and studied their movements frame by frame, analyzing angles, patterns, and biomechanics. This exposure expanded his perception of combat far beyond the boundaries of traditional kung fu. He began adopting concepts from boxing, such as feints, jabs, lateral movement, and guard structure, integrating them into his evolving personal method. His interest in fencing further diversified his technical base. The timing, distancing, and interception concepts in fencing deeply influenced Jeet. The idea of stop hitting, striking at the exact moment an opponent initiates their attack, became one of Lee's signature principles. The fencing stance and its emphasis on mobility and explosive entry helped shape Lee's famous low, spring-like fighting posture. He understood that fencing, though seemingly unrelated to Asian martial arts, offered insights into universal combat principles: efficiency, precision, and timing. Lee's approach to technical integration was decades ahead of its time. In an era when martial artists rarely cross-trained, he was already combining techniques from boxing, fencing, Wing Chun, judo, karate, and wrestling. This interdisciplinary mindset mirrors modern MMA training, where athletes blend striking, grappling, and clinch work into a seamless system. Lee was effectively creating a prototype of cross-disciplinary martial arts long before the world had ever seen a UFC fight. His famous motto, "Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless," encapsulates the foundational logic behind today's hybrid styles. His training methodology also broke new ground. While many martial artists of his generation focused primarily on drills and forms, Lee adopted a scientific approach rooted in measurable results. He meticulously documented his workouts, tracking heart rate, endurance, power output, and reaction time. He studied kinesiology and biomechanics, applying academic concepts to optimize his movements. This was not simply training, it was research. He viewed his body as a laboratory, each session an experiment designed to verify the effectiveness of his ideas. Lee's training routines combine strength training, cardiovascular conditioning, calisthenics, isometric exercises, stretching, and explosive drills. He ran long distances to build endurance, practiced interval sprints for anaerobic conditioning, and lifted weights to increase functional strength. At a time when many martial artists believed weight training made fighters slow, Lee embraced it confidently, proving that properly applied resistance training enhanced speed rather than hindered it. He created custom equipment, modified existing tools, and designed drills that simulated real combat fatigue. This approach aligns closely with the integrated conditioning systems used in modern MMA, mixed energy training, functional strength development, and biomechanics-based movement patterns. Yet, despite his remarkable insight and foresight, Bruce Lee's grappling knowledge remained limited compared to today's standards. Although he experimented with judo throws, wrestling techniques, and joint locks, he did not have access to the detailed knowledge that modern athletes gain through structured Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling programs. The modern MMA landscape includes fighters who dedicate years to mastering ground fighting under the guidance of specialized coaches. Bruce Lee, working primarily alone or with a small circle of training partners, simply could not replicate the volume or diversity of grappling experience available today. This is not a criticism, but rather a reflection of historical context. Grappling systems like BJJ had not yet achieved global visibility, and competitive hybrid fighting had not yet provided the data-driven feedback loops that shape modern grappling strategy. Still, Lee's mindset suggests he would have adapted quickly if exposed to structured grappling education. His philosophy valued practicality over tradition and experimentation over dogma. He was not attached to any particular style, and he eagerly adopted techniques that proved effective under pressure. His writings frequently reference grappling principles, showing that he understood the importance of control, leverage, and positional dominance long before MMA popularized these concepts. What he lacked in formal grappling instruction, he compensated for through analytical insight and adaptability. Jeet Kune, therefore, must be understood not as a fixed style, but as an evolving framework. It emphasized mobility, adaptability, efficiency, and directness, rather than preserving techniques. It preserved principles that align closely with the demands of modern combat sports. Lee believed the human body, not tradition, dictated the most efficient way to fight. This guided his rejection of unnecessary forms and elaborate stances. Instead, he pursued the shortest path between intention and execution. In many ways, Bruce Lee developed the philosophical core of mixed martial arts decades before the sport formalized it. He challenged the idea of static systems, advocated for cross-training, emphasized pressure testing, and prioritized functionality. These foundations make it clear that Bruce Lee was not simply a martial artist of his time. He was a visionary whose ideas anticipated the evolution of combat sports. To understand how Bruce Lee's abilities compare to today's elite fighters, we must examine the system that defines modern mixed martial arts. MMA is not a single style. It is a culmination of decades of experimentation, refinement, and competition across multiple disciplines. The fighters who compete at the highest levels of organizations like the UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and Risen are products of a combat environment shaped by continuous data feedback, evolving strategy, and increasingly sophisticated training methodologies. In many ways, MMA represents the most complete expression of functional combat yet developed, combining striking, grappling, wrestling, and conditioning into a unified system. Evaluating Bruce Lee without understanding the system would be incomplete. Modern MMA evolved through several distinct phases. Early events in the 1990s were experiments that pitted one martial art against another: Jiu-Jitsu versus karate, wrestling versus kickboxing, boxing versus traditional kung fu. This era mirrored the very dilemma Bruce Lee identified decades prior: the belief that one style could dominate all others. When Royce Gracie demonstrated the effectiveness of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in early UFC events, the martial arts world witnessed a turning point. Pure striking systems were insufficient against grappling specialists, and pure grappling systems could not dominate well-rounded strikers forever. This revelation forced the global martial arts community to rethink long-held assumptions. Fighters quickly realized that to survive, they needed to integrate multiple skill sets. As MMA matured, the style versus style era gave way to hybrid fighters who trained simultaneously in wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and boxing. By the mid-2000s, athletes like Georges St-Pierre, Anderson Silva, Fedor Emelianenko, and BJ Penn had mastered the art of blending offense, defense, and transition seamlessly. Their success demonstrated that the future belonged not to specialists, but to adaptive generalists shaped by data-driven methods. The sport shifted from chaotic experimentation to structured, scientifically informed preparation. Today's MMA fighters train under an integrated framework that blends biomechanical analysis, sports psychology, strength and conditioning science, and technical proficiency across multiple disciplines. Modern fight camps incorporate specialists in different fields: striking coaches, wrestling coaches, BJJ instructors, conditioning experts, nutritionists, sports doctors, physio teams, and often mental performance consultants. This multidisciplinary infrastructure did not exist during Bruce Lee's time. Fighters now benefit from high-level sparring partners across weight classes, thousands of hours of live resistance, and constant refinement through competition cycles. At the technical level, modern MMA striking draws heavily from Muay Thai, Western boxing, and Dutch kickboxing. Fighters learn how to manage distance through footwork and feints, how to mix punches with elbows, knees, and kicks, and how to defend against takedowns while striking. Clinch work, which was once overlooked in many traditional systems, has become a crucial battleground. Muay Thai clinches, Greco-Roman ties, and wrestling underhooks blend together in complex exchanges that require strength, timing, and awareness. On the grappling side, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and catch wrestling provide tools for positional control, escape strategies, sweeps, chokes, and joint locks. Wrestlers dominate many aspects of modern MMA because they understand pressure, leverage, and control better than almost any other discipline. The ability to dictate where the fight takes place, standing or on the ground, is often the decisive factor in victory. Fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, Kamaru Usman, and Daniel Cormier have shown how wrestling, when combined with striking and submission knowledge, can neutralize even elite opponents. This level of integration creates a unique tactical environment that fighters must navigate. Unlike traditional martial arts, which often emphasize idealized scenarios or rehearsed sequences, MMA thrives on unpredictability. Every movement, whether a punch, takedown attempt, or stance switch, creates opportunities and vulnerabilities. Fighters must make rapid decisions under fatigue, while adapting to opponents who are equally skilled and conditioned. The constant threat of transitions, from striking to grappling, from ground control to submission attempts, demands awareness, composure, and strategic intelligence. This dynamic, high-pressure ecosystem differentiates modern MMA from historical or traditional martial arts. The physical demands of MMA are equally intense. Fighters train to endure 5-minute rounds that require explosive movement, cardiovascular endurance, anaerobic bursts, and the ability to wrestle and strike simultaneously. Conditioning programs are designed to simulate fight scenarios: heavy bag drills under fatigue, live wrestling rounds, controlled sparring, technical flow sessions, and targeted strength training that balances mobility with power. Recovery science, including nutrition, sleep optimization, and injury prevention, plays a significant role in sustaining peak performance. All of these advancements create an environment where modern fighters benefit from decades of accumulated knowledge. Each generation builds upon the lessons of the previous one. Errors become data. Victories become templates for future training. Strategies evolve as fighters discover new ways to exploit openings or counter established techniques. This cycle of experimentation and refinement is what allows modern MMA to function as a living system, a constantly evolving science of human combat. When comparing Bruce Lee to modern fighters, this structural evolution is critical. He never had access to the deep, systematic training methodology that defines contemporary MMA. His ideas foreshadowed much of what MMA would become, but he lacked the institutional support, sparring networks, and technological insights that modern fighters take for granted. Elite athletes today train with partners who specialize in each category of combat: world-class wrestlers, professional kickboxers, seasoned jiu-jitsu black belts. They grow up in fight gyms where cross-training is the norm, where pressure testing is constant, and where competition provides continuous feedback. This does not diminish Bruce Lee's contributions. It contextualizes them. Lee created a philosophy that embraced integration long before the world recognized its value. He practiced cross-training decades before the term existed. He emphasized conditioning before it became a scientific discipline. His mindset anticipated the logic of modern MMA, but he worked without the ecosystem that allows fighters to maximize their potential. Modern MMA fighters are not inherently superior as individuals. They simply train within an environment that has been shaped by cumulative evolution. In assessing Bruce Lee's potential in modern MMA, we must acknowledge both realities: the sophistication of contemporary systems and the visionary nature of Lee's approach. He operated at the cutting edge of his era, but combat sports have undergone radical transformation since then. MMA today is not only a sport. It is a global industry backed by research, technology, and institutional knowledge. Understanding this context is essential before evaluating how Bruce Lee's skills, philosophy, and adaptability would interact with it. To fully evaluate how Bruce Lee might perform in modern mixed martial arts, we must examine one of the most defining factors in combat sports: the rules. Every fighting system is shaped not only by techniques and training, but by the limitations, incentives, and tactical pressures created by its governing regulations. MMA is no exception. Its structure influences which skills are most valuable, how fighters strategize, and what forms of combat are permitted. Bruce Lee, however, developed Jeet with virtually no restrictions in mind. His priority was self-preservation, efficiency, and the ability to neutralize threats as quickly as possible. This philosophical divide between self-defense-oriented combat and regulated competition is central to understanding how Lee's skill set would translate or need to adapt to the cage. Modern MMA operates within a carefully designed framework intended to balance safety, fairness, and entertainment. Fighters compete in timed rounds, usually 3 5-minute rounds for regular fights and 5 5-minute rounds for main events or title bouts. Weight classes are strictly enforced to prevent excessive size disparities. Illegal techniques include eye gouging, groin strikes, headbutts, small joint manipulation, strikes to the back of the head, and kicking or kneeing a grounded opponent in most promotions. These constraints ensure that fighters can compete at high intensity without exposing themselves to life-threatening harm. They also shape the strategies fighters develop. For example, certain takedown entries, positional controls, or ground and pound tactics work specifically because the rules protect fighters from the most dangerous countermeasures. Bruce Lee's Jeet was never designed for such conditions. His philosophy emphasized direct solutions, not prolonged tactical exchanges. Moves targeting vital areas, eyes, throat, knees, and groin were central components of his system. These techniques exploit the natural weaknesses of the human body and are highly effective in real-world scenarios, but will be disallowed entirely under MMA regulations. Because Lee trained with self-defense principles in mind, many of his reflexes and strategies relied on exploiting these vulnerable targets. Adapting to a rule set that prohibits his most efficient tools would require significant retraining, both physically and tactically. However, Lee's philosophy of adaptability suggests he would have embraced this challenge rather than resisted it. He understood that rules are environmental variables, not barriers. In his writings, he often emphasized the importance of adjusting one's strategy according to circumstances. Just as water takes the shape of the container it occupies, Lee believed a fighter must mold his approach to fit the context. Whether defending against multiple attackers in a street scenario or preparing for a regulated competition, the underlying principles, timing, precision, speed, efficiency, remain constant. The techniques, however, may change. Bruce Lee and the legacy of combat. So, could Bruce Lee have survived a fight against today's top MMA fighters? The answer is not simple. It depends on context, preparation, and the lens through which we view greatness. Placing him directly from the 1970s into a modern cage would have presented undeniable challenges. Decades of accumulated experience, structured training systems, sports science, and high-level sparring would give modern fighters an edge. Yet Bruce Lee was not an ordinary martial artist. His philosophy, discipline, and unparalleled capacity for adaptation suggest that, given access to today's resources, he could have evolved faster than anyone expected. His real power was not in his size, reach, or even technique. It was his ability to learn, adapt, and innovate continuously. Bruce Lee's greatest contribution to martial arts and combat sports wasn't victories in the ring. It was his methodology. He transformed martial arts from rigid tradition into a dynamic, experimental science. He introduced ideas that now form the backbone of modern MMA: cross-training, functional conditioning, situational testing, and mental mastery. In many ways, every fighter who blends styles, optimizes performance, and trains relentlessly owes a debt to the blueprint Lee created. When we look beyond speculation about who would win, what remains inspiring is the mindset he embodied: discipline, awareness, adaptability, and relentless pursuit of improvement. These are the qualities that define a true martial artist, not just a fighter. Bruce Lee challenged the boundaries of human limitation, not merely the limits of his opponents. So, whether you're a fan of martial arts, combat sports, or personal growth, the lesson from Bruce Lee is timeless. Keep learning, keep evolving, and never settle for the status quo. His legacy lives on, not as a fighter frozen in time, but as a living philosophy that continues to influence modern combat, training, and personal excellence. If you enjoyed exploring this debate, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into martial arts, history, and legendary fighters. Share your thoughts. Do you think Bruce Lee could have stood toe-to-toe with today's MMA champions? We'd love to hear your take. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.